When I bought my cabin on the edge of Fox Hollow Lake, all I wanted was quiet weekends, fishing at sunrise, and maybe a deer sighting or two. The listing had called it rustic charm with abundant nature. They forgot to mention abundant HOA. On my first morning, as I sat on the porch drinking coffee, a white golf cart rolled up the gravel road. Inside were two people wearing matching windbreakers embroidered with Fox Hollow Lakeside Association. The woman, clipboard in hand, smiled like a dentist before a root canal. "Mr. Carter?" she chirped. "Welcome. I'm Denise, HOA president. This is Rick, compliance officer." "Compliance officer?" I repeated. "For a lake?" Rick nodded solemnly. "We prefer the term resident harmony enforcer." I should have known then. They gave me a folder stuffed with bylaws thicker than a phone book. No outdoor fires without approval. No flags larger than 3 feet. No lawn ornaments shaped like wildlife. And then Denise said cheerfully, "Oh, and of course no hunting of any kind. We're a peaceful refuge." I smiled politely. "I'm just here for fishing." They left me with a forced smile and the faint scent of disinfectant. For a while, life was fine. I worked remote during the week and spent weekends out in the woods. But one crisp October morning, everything went sideways. I was walking the ridge behind my cabin, bow in hand, doing what my granddad called stalking silence. I wasn't even hunting, just scouting deer sign for later in the season. Halfway down the trail, I heard tires crunching gravel. Denise's golf cart burst through the trees like a mosquito on wheels. She screeched to a stop, eyes wide. "Mr. Carter," she gasped. "Are you armed?" I blinked. "It's a bow. I'm not armed. "You're hunting," she snapped. "That's a violation of HOA Code Section 9, Paragraph 12. I looked around. There's no deer, no blood, no arrows fired. Rick climbed out of the cart, already holding a pink slip. "Intent to hunt," he said gravely. That's how I got my first fine, $500 for hunting with intent. I laughed when I read it, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. A week later, another letter arrived. Failure to pay fine may result in property lien. That was when I started researching. See, my cabin bordered a stretch of forest the HOA always bragged about, Fox Hollow Preserve, their pride and joy. 5 miles of hiking trails open to members only, with a little wooden sign that said, "Funded by the residents of Fox Hollow." Except it wasn't funded by them. The trail map on their website listed a parcel number. I looked it up on the county land registry. To my astonishment, the HOA didn't own it. They leased it from a private timber company called North Point Resources. I called North Point pretending to be a hiker who loved their property. The receptionist, Board, said, "We're actually selling a few parcels this quarter. Which lot are you interested in?" I gave her the parcel number. "Oh, that one's barely used," she said. "Mostly woods and swamp. You sure?" "Very sure." 2 weeks and a few signatures later, Fox Hollow Preserve became Carter Timber Lot 24B. My name was on the deed. The next Saturday, I posted 3 signs at every trailhead: "Private property, no trespassing, by order of the landowner." It took about 2 hours for the first HOA email to arrive. "Mr. Carter, there seems to be some misunderstanding regarding your signage. The preserve is common use land under HOA supervision." I replied with a PDF of the deed. "No misunderstanding. It's mine now. Enjoy your golf carts." Denise called me within minutes. "You can't just, this is outrageous. Our hiking club meets there every Sunday." "You fined me for walking with a bow," I said. "Now no one walks." There was silence, then a horrified gasp. By the following week, the HOA newsletter headline read, "Community trails closed pending legal review." Hikers sulked, joggers whined. A few diehards tried sneaking in, until they noticed my new cameras and the "trespassers will be prosecuted" placards. I never had to press charges. Word spread fast. Meanwhile, my weekends were peaceful again. I sat on my porch watching fall leaves tumble into the lake and smiled whenever I saw Denise drive by, glaring like she was trying to melt me with her thoughts. Still, the pettiness wasn't quite over. A month later, I got another HOA letter. "Fine, unauthorized use of outdoor lighting. string lights visible after 10 p.m. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the porch. That's when I realized maybe this wasn't just about peace anymore. Maybe it was time to have some fun. Within a week, the HOA meeting sounded less like neighborhood planning and more like crisis management. They'd lost their hiking land. Half their newsletter was now dedicated to trail recovery updates. And apparently, the community yoga instructor had to cancel her Mindful Walk Wednesdays. The rage was palpable. You could almost hear it echoing through the cul-de-sacs. I kept a straight face whenever I passed Denise on the main road. She'd be out front watering her perfect lawn, pretending not to glare, the hose nozzle trembling in her hand like it wanted to hiss at me. Then came the letter that was supposed to restore harmony. It was written in corporate apology language that smelled like desperation. Dear Mr. Carter, the association would like to open a dialogue regarding Fox Hollow Preserve. We believe in cooperation and mutual benefit. I almost framed it. I called the number at the bottom and said, "Sure, I'm open to dialogue. How much do you think it's worth to rent your harmony back?" She hung up. A few days later, the HOA tried a new tactic. They filed a noise complaint. Apparently, my generator, which I ran for exactly 20 minutes a day, was disrupting nesting birds. I counterfiled a wildlife report showing that most of those birds didn't even migrate through our county. The inspector who came out laughed so hard, he asked for a copy of my report, for personal use. That's when the local paper caught wind of it. A small column appeared under the headline, "Cabin owner buys HOA's beloved hiking trails, calls it poetic justice." They even used a photo of me on my porch, holding my bow like some kind of rebel park ranger. Overnight, my inbox filled with messages from people across the county, half cheering me on, half asking how to replicate my strategy. The HOA hated that part most. Denise called a special emergency meeting, which, judging by the email leak someone sent me, included phrases like image restoration, legal strategy, and how did he buy that land legally? Meanwhile, I was busy turning my newly acquired Carter Timber Lot 24B into the most official-looking private property in 3 counties. I added a simple gravel path leading to a locked gate, hung a big sign that said, "Research area, do not enter," and placed a small weather station near the trailhead just for effect. When the hikers realized they couldn't sneak in anymore, they tried to hold a peaceful protest. A dozen people showed up with paper signs saying, "Reopen our trails." I greeted them kindly with bottled water and said, "You're welcome to protest from the road. My driveway's off limits." That photo made the news too. Denise's patience finally snapped at the next HOA assembly. She sent a certified letter demanding that I restore community access and pay all outstanding fines to demonstrate goodwill. I sent her back a small box containing a copy of my paid property tax bill, a brochure for the local public hiking park, and a note that read, "Goodwill restored. Trails not included." 2 days later, a sheriff's deputy knocked on my door. He was polite, probably amused. "Sir, they say you've illegally restricted community property." I showed him the deed. He nodded, smirked, and said, "Looks legal to me." Before he left, he whispered, "I've got to admit, that's a new one." With the HOA losing every angle, they tried to recruit public sympathy. They posted dramatic flyers around the neighborhood. "Save our hikes. Stop the greed." I collected a few and framed them in my cabin hallway under the title Historic Artifacts. That winter, I took it up another notch. I put in motion-activated trail cameras and printed a few pictures of raccoons and deer caught mid-stride. Then I laminated them under the heading Wildlife Study, Active Monitoring. Now, every time someone tried to claim I'd ruined nature, I could gesture grandly and say, "Actually, I'm helping it." The story spread beyond the county. One local radio station did a small-town heroes segment titled, "The Man Who Outsmarted His HOA." I did a short interview, keeping my tone humble. "It's really about protecting our freedoms," I said, "and raccoon privacy." By spring, the trails had been closed for 6 months. The weeds reclaimed the gravel paths, the wooden benches rotted, and the HOA's website quietly removed the Fox Hollow Preserve page. That's when Denise showed up again, this time with Rick and 2 new board members, all trying hard to look diplomatic. "Mr. Carter," she began, "perhaps there's a way forward. The residents miss their walking paths. If you could see your way to reopening access within reason, we're prepared to rescind your fines." "Within reason?" I repeated. "You mean the fines that weren't legal to begin with?" She smiled thinly. "It's about community healing." "Tell you what," I said, "I'll open it back up, under one condition." Their eyes brightened. "I'll build a new path, charge admission, and call it the Fox Hollow Wildlife Observation Experience. HOA members get 10% off." Rick's face fell. "You're serious?" "Completely. It'll pay for the signage." They left in stunned silence. Within a week, someone anonymously dumped a complaint in my mailbox. "Carter is commercializing natural spaces." I framed that one too. What they didn't know was that I wasn't done yet. The lease records had shown another interesting fact. Fox Hollow's lake trail, the one everyone used for jogging, crossed 3 tiny parcels owned by private ranchers. 2 of those lots were up for auction. If the HOA thought losing one trail hurt, I was about to show them what trail closure really meant. The county auction was held in a dusty municipal building that smelled like old paper and coffee. A handful of retirees and one guy in a cowboy hat were there. 2 lots came up that nobody seemed to care about. Small, narrow strips of land. Unsuitable for development, the clerk said. They were perfect. 10 minutes later, I walked out with 2 deeds folded neatly in my pocket. Combined with the timber lot I already owned, they connected right to the Fox Hollow Lake path. The HOA's beloved jogging circuit now crossed entirely over land that belonged to me. I didn't post any signs right away. I waited. A week later, the HOA announced their annual Nature Day, the event where everyone paraded around pretending to love conservation while drinking lemon punch and complaining about property taxes. They always ended it with a ceremonial community hike. I was out fishing that morning when the parade of people in matching Fox Hollow shirts came marching down the lakeside trail. Denise led the way, beaming, clipboard in hand. I smiled and waved. They made it about halfway around before they hit the new gate ID quietly installed the night before. Bright red, chain-locked and covered with a shiny sign. Private property, entry by permission, only inquiries. Carter Land and Timber Management, LLC. The next 10 minutes were glorious chaos. People milled around, taking pictures. Someone shouted, "Is this a joke?" Denise S.'s voice rose above the crowd like an air raid siren. "He can do this! It's our trail!" I strolled over from the dock, holding my coffee. "Morning, everything okay?" She turned on me, red-faced. "You can't block a community event." "Sure I can," I said. "It's a private event now. Liability, you understand." "Liability? Yep, insurance doesn't cover unauthorized joggers." The local news happened to be there covering Nature Day and filmed the entire exchange. That night, the clip aired with the headline, "Local Man Accidentally Shuts Down HOA Festival, Cites Liability." By Monday morning, my inbox was flooded again. Strangers sent me memes. Someone photoshopped a movie poster of me titled Trail Boss, the man who closed everything. The HOA, however, was not amused. They called a closed-door meeting, which I later found out wasn't that closed. Rick's cousin worked at the diner where they planned it. The plan was apparently to petition the county to declare my land essential community access. That made me laugh so hard I snorted coffee through my nose. I called the county office myself. "If the HOA asks about declaring my property public, what happens?" The clerk chuckled. "We'd have to buy it from you at market value." "Oh," I said, "that's interesting. What's market value for 3 miles of lakeside trail?" She typed for a moment. "About 800 grand, give or take." I grinned. "Thank you, that's all I needed." That week I sent the HOA a polite letter. "Dear Fox Hollow Association, given your enthusiasm for community spaces, I'd be willing to sell my connected parcels, at full market value, of course. Otherwise, please enjoy the continued serenity of my private land." They never replied directly, but word spread. For the next few weeks, residents walked the trail up to my gate, stopped, and turned back like pilgrims reaching the end of the world. Some just stood there taking selfies with the sign. I even put up a small suggestion box that read, "Ideas for future land use." Entries included everything from open a petting zoo to "Please just move." My favorite read, "Build a restaurant and call it the fine print." Then the local paper did a follow-up. The headline, "Cabin owner turns HOA war into business plan." That's when the story went truly viral. People from other states started emailing me photos of HOA notices they'd framed in their bathrooms. One guy even asked if he could buy Carter timber merchandise. I didn't go that far, but I did make a small sign at the end of my driveway that read, "Welcome to Carterland, where fines become forests." The HOA tried one last counterattack. They hired a lawyer who sent me a 12-page letter filled with words like easement and historic access. I sent him back a single page, an updated survey map, and a sticky note that said, "Checked with the county. You're trespassing." That was the end of that. By midsummer, I'd started letting friends visit the property. We'd have cookouts, go fishing, and laugh about how one silly fine for intent to hunt had turned into this grand experiment in irony. The air was clear, the woods alive, and not a single HOA email in sight. Denise finally moved away that fall. I heard she told the realtor, "The neighborhood changed." Technically, she wasn't wrong. Spring rolled around again, and Fox Hollow looked different. The once manicured lawns had gone a little wild. The bulletin board by the clubhouse, once overflowing with rules, now mostly held yard sale flyers and a single faded notice about pending trail negotiations. Nobody was negotiating anything. I hadn't seen a golf cart patrol in months. The HOA's funding came from membership fees, and after half the residents quit in protest or apathy, their treasury ran dry. I almost felt bad. Almost. One morning, a letter arrived, not from the HOA this time, but from a man named Harold Green, the newly appointed interim neighborhood liaison. It was written on plain printer paper, not the usual embossed letterhead. "Mr. Carter, the association has dissolved. However, a few of us would like to talk about future community cooperation. We know we can't undo the past, but maybe we can start fresh." That caught my attention. I drove down to the old clubhouse that weekend. The parking lot was half empty, the Fox Hollow Lakeside Association sign removed, leaving a ghostly rectangle of clean paint behind it. Inside, about 6 neighbors were sitting around a folding table with coffee and donuts. No clipboards, no windbreakers, just tired people who wanted their neighborhood back. Harold stood and extended his hand. "You're Carter, right? The guy who bought half the forest?" "Depends who's asking," I said, smiling. "We're not here to fight," he said. "We're trying to rebuild as a voluntary group. No fines, no nonsense. Maybe even reopen some of the trails with your permission, on your terms." That last part caught my ear. I leaned back. "My terms, huh? You might not like those." He grinned. "We probably deserve that." I looked around at the faces. Regular folks, not the clipboard brigade. I thought about the empty trails and the woods going quiet. Then I said, "Okay, you can use the trails again. But we do it right this time. No rules about string lights, no committees about mailbox color, just neighbors." Harold nodded. "Deal." A few days later, I replaced the private property signs with new ones that said, "Carter Preserve Community Access, by kindness, not paperwork." It became a hit almost overnight. Families came to walk the trails again, this time with smiles instead of grudges. Kids picked up litter. Nobody argued about bylaws or hedge heights. And when someone saw me with my bow again, they just waved. The local paper ran one last headline, "Man who shut HOA reopens land with no HOA attached." I kept that one framed in the cabin too, right next to my first fine for intent to hunt. Every now and then, hikers still stop by my porch and ask about the story. I tell them the truth, that I never set out to start a feud. I just wanted to walk my own woods in peace. The rest, as I say, was creative problem solving. One evening that summer, I sat on my porch watching the sun sink behind the pines. The lake shimmered gold, and somewhere down the trail, a couple of kids laughed. For the first time since I bought the place, Fox Hollow was quiet in the right way. Just as I was about to go inside, A white golf cart rolled slowly down the road. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating, but instead of Denise, it was Harold driving, waving with a big grin. "Thought you'd appreciate the nostalgia," he called out. I laughed. "As long as there's no clipboard, we're good." He tapped the steering wheel. "Just coffee, no rules." And that was that. The era of fines and feuds officially over. Still, I couldn't resist one last little touch. I built a wooden sign at the trail entrance, carved by hand, and hung it between two old oak trees. It read, "Carter Land, EST, by mistake, perfected by pettiness." People took pictures with it. Some even said it should be a local landmark. Maybe one day it will be. Sometimes I think back to that first fine for intent to hunt, and I can't help but smile. If they hadn't pushed so hard, I never would have bought the land, never would have learned how satisfying it is to stand your ground, and definitely never would be founded the only nature preserve in the county born out of an HOA meltdown. So in the end, the score was simple. HOA, 0, deer, still free, trails, open, peace, restored. And me? I got everything I wanted. Quiet mornings, fishing at sunrise, and the best view in the county. No permission slip required.